Anita Anand is the Minister of National Defence. We reached her in Brussels. Hi, Minister. Good to have you back on the program. Thanks for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Minister, President Zelensky echoed a lot of what he said to Canada's Parliament yesterday in his address to American or the U.S. Congress this morning. In your meetings with other defense ministers on that discussion of what more countries can do to help Ukraine, is there an offer from Canada for more lethal aid, beyond what has already been provided?
We heard from Minister Resnikov in our meetings here at NATO today, and he did request from all NATO countries more lethal aid. And we are doing whatever we can to work with other allies to provide more aid. We are working on a number of options, and at the current time, our view is we will do whatever we can because we stand firmly and steadfastly with Ukraine. And as you know, we've already provided rocket launchers, anti-tank missiles, grenades, ammunition, sniper rifles, but we want to do more. And so, again, we're considering a number of options.
Does Canada have more lethal aid to provide Ukraine?
We have provided all of the lethal aid so far from Canadian Armed Forces inventory. At the current time, as I said, we are looking at a number of additional options. We need to make sure that we do retain capacity here for the Canadian Armed Forces should the need arise, and that's the balancing act that we're currently undertaking.
Do you know at this point, and not getting into specifics, because obviously, as you say, you're reviewing the various options, but do you know if any options exist, basically, like, are we at capacity? Have we given them what we have and we need to keep the rest? Or do you think that there are still options within what's left?
I believe that we have exhausted inventory from the Canadian Armed Forces to the extent that we are able to provide weapons, etc. As I said, there are capacity issues that we need to make sure we are on top of for the purposes of ensuring the Canadian Armed Forces is well resourced. And so as a result, we will look at additional options, including working with other allied countries. After the defense ministers' meetings, I had a number of bilateral meetings with other countries to raise this idea because, again, we need to do whatever we can. I want to say that I've heard from Minister Resnikov almost every day since the hostilities began, and including today. One of the things that is making a very large difference for Ukraine at the current time is the cameras that are manufactured in Canada and that we are providing for the purposes of drone strikes. And the cameras actually allow precision with those strikes. And we are providing, as I said, a number of cameras to Ukraine for that purpose.
Minister, has NATO indicated when the 3,400 Canadian troops that you announced are at the ready? Has NATO indicated to you where and when they will be needed?
No, not as of yet. We are on high readiness alert at the current time because we need to ensure that we are fulfilling our commitment to NATO in terms of force generation. But of course, that has not been drawn down as a request at the current time. But as I said, we are full-fledged helping Ukraine on a bilateral basis and then fulfilling our multilateral commitment to the NATO alliance from a deterrence and a defensive posture. In that vein, we did up our commitment under Operation Reassurance to add up to 460 more soldiers on top of the 500 already on the ground. And we will also be extending that mission for a few years, as the Prime Minister announced last week.
Have you received any indication as to when they might make a specific ask about where those 3,400 troops will go?
No, at the current time, they have been asked to be on high readiness alert. And of course, as soon as we are given the message, we will be deploying those soldiers. But at the current time, 3,400 soldiers requested by NATO to be ready are indeed ready. And that's part of the contribution that the Canadian Armed Forces will make to NATO force generation. But let's not forget that we did train over 33,000 Ukrainian soldiers, and those Ukrainian soldiers are receiving the lethal aid that Canada has committed to Ukraine, and they're able to use that aid as well, which is what I've heard from Minister Resnikov.
You said, Minister, last week Canada is on track to meet its target of reaching 2% of GDP on defense spending over a 9-year period. And I heard you in an interview with Global News wonder out loud, should we be doing more? Is it your position that your government should be doing more?
Actually, what I said was that we are increasing our defense spending by 70% over the 9-year period beginning in 2017. In addition to that increase of 70% under our current defense policy, Strong, Secure, Engaged, I am also bringing forward a robust package for NORAD modernization and continental defense in the short term. And that package will go towards the 2% as well. The reality is that under our current defense spending, we are putting real assets on the ground and in the water. For example, the Arctic offshore patrol ships, one of which, the Harry DeWolf, has circumnavigated the North American continent. We are undertaking air exercises at the current time with the United States in the Arctic. And the reality is that we have a number of approaches to increase defense spending, as well as to ensure that the defense spending that we're undertaking is making a practical difference.
In layman's terms, I guess what I'm asking, though, is given the current context, is there the chance that you will see, that Canadians will see your government pledge to accelerate the current projections for defense spending? Like, will you spend more than already promised, as we've seen a number of our allies announce in the past few weeks?
Well, as I said, the NORAD modernization and continental defense package that I am bringing forward is going to go to the 2%. So the answer to your question is yes, we are going to be moving forward with increased defense spending. Why? Because we see the threat environment as changing rapidly, but also because continental defense is a priority for me personally as minister and for our government. We need to make sure that we are doing whatever we can in terms of our commitments to our alliances, whether it is NORAD, whether it is NATO, for the protection of those alliances and Canada itself.
And when will Canadians know the details of that robust plan, as you call it?
It should be in the short term. I will be discussing that internally with my colleagues. And once a package is finalized, I will for sure tell you and the Canadian public.
Why should Canadians believe your government in the pledges that you're making here and that we've heard your colleagues make throughout the past number of weeks when it comes to defense spending? When the parliamentary budget officer highlights that, for example, the spending announced in 2017 on capital spending, there was a shortfall, a cumulative shortfall of almost $10 billion from 2018 to 2021 between what was planned and announced in that big plan in 2017 and what was actually spent. There is a lag.
We are actually moving forward with large procurements, which initially take time to get off the ground. But as I said, we are building and ensuring the launch of 6 Arctic offshore patrol ships, 2 of which have been built. And as I said, the Harry DeWolf circumnavigated the North American continent as a means to show its use and in particular with regards to the protection of our Arctic. In addition, we will be awarding contracts for 88 future fighters this year. We have contracts being negotiated for 2 polar icebreakers. We are also procuring the surface combatants, very large ships. So those are all large procurements under Strong, Secure, Engaged. Those are proceeding. And so our defense spending is making progress. We are getting assets commissioned, procured, and in the water, et cetera. And we will continue to do that. And in addition to that, we are also considering and will be bringing forward a robust package for NORAD and continental defense. And we will continue to ensure that we are living up to our obligations vis-a-vis NATO and the alliance that I'm meeting with today.
You said that robust package would go towards the 2%. Does that mean that your government has ruled out exceeding 2% on defense spending?
Those are conversations that I'm actively having with the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister and with our Prime Minister at the current time. This is an evolving situation, and ensuring that we are responsive to existing and evolving threats is in our collective purview. And so I just spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister, in fact, in the last 24 hours to raise this particular issue, and we will be continuing to meet over the course of the week and the weekend.
Should Canadians interpret that as an openness to exceeding 2%?
Canadians should interpret that as we are very much focused on making sure that Canada is responding to existing threats, all the while ensuring that we are living up to our defense spending under Strong, Secure, Engage, which is increasing defense spending by 70% over that 9-year period. In addition, we have NORAD modernization and continental defense. In addition, we have procurements that are ongoing that will see assets on the ground, in the air, and in the water in the short and medium term. Respectfully,
Minister, I take all those points. I think Canadians understand you're committed to meeting this moment, but that's not an answer about whether or not you're open to spending more than 2% of GDP on defense spending.
I personally am bringing forward aggressive options which would see potentially exceeding the 2% level, hitting the 2% level, and then below the 2% level. My view is that my role is to bring forward a number of different options for our government to consider, and that's exactly what I'm doing together with the Chief of Defence Staff, together with my Deputy Minister and our respective teams, so that our government and our Finance Minister in particular can make her decisions on the basis of full information.
Okay, Minister, I'll leave it there. I appreciate your time. Safe travels.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.